and welcome to the Goal Difference podcast. You know, the one with the Twins and the Arsenal and Liverpool, except it's just Scarlet here with a very special international break edition. Lola and I have been in the lab cooking. Sorry if I'm mixing metaphors. And we've decided we want to reach out into the wonderful fan communities of our teams and do a bit of a vibe check. Today, we're going to move on as quickly as we can from what happened at the Stadium of Light, thank God, to some broader, more existential questions about how we're doing. And I am very pleased to be joined by special guest Mitch from the Shirtless Plantain Show. If you haven't listened, please check it out. It's brilliant. Mitch, how are you doing?
Hi, Scarlet. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Mitch, we conceded 2 goals from open play and we scored 2 goals from open play yesterday. Do you think Jamie Carragher is happy?
I think everyone is happier because we played a more exciting game for everyone. The neutrals were probably happy. We scored open play goals. I mean, this is how you win titles, is by making everyone else happy and not winning games.
And how much do you think Mikel Merino's early head injury was a factor in him not being able to score a late-headed winner?
Ooh, yeah. I wonder if there is like a mental aspect of like you get nailed in the head early on and then you're still kind of like ringing late in the game because we have no subs to bring on, and a ball comes in that you could maybe go for a header for, but you see Dan Ballard running for it as well, and you're like, no, I'm going to make a business decision here. Not worth it.
Dan Ballard was on a one-man mission yesterday.
It's it's so annoying when like, and this is regardless of sport, when like just players that like didn't have any impact at a club play against the club again and then feel like there's a chip on their shoulder. Like, I'm a massive volleyball fan, and last year a former Nebraska player just decided to like only have her good games of the season against Nebraska. And it's just like, you didn't have to come here for a year and just get mad. You could have just gone to Penn State. Like, why are you doing this to us specifically?
It's like, why are we so well, we know why we're so rent-free in other
Yeah.
people's heads. In terms of the game more broadly, Sunderland had 0.44 XG and we had 2.09. And yet, people seem compelled to brand it as Sunderland got what they deserved, Sunderland rattled us. How much do you think that's true, and do you care?
I don't care about the narratives. I think people are gonna run with that kind of stuff about Sunderland because they're a cool story. In the American broadcast, Peter Drury was our announcer, and like he was very like, you could tell he had a lot of like love and admiration for Sunderland because he's someone that like really likes an underdog. Like, he had the same attitude about us a couple years ago when we were like surprised in the title race. So I think like people like the Sunderland story, and so that plays into it. And like obviously we are like the team to beat, so like that also plays into it. And I think we deserve to win the game. I think we got soccered. Like, that shit happens where it's just like, you are the better team, you create better chances, and 2 goals that just kind of like are ball bounces in the wrong direction happen. Which is why I'm not like overly pissed off about the game yesterday. It was just one of those things where it's like, we didn't get a third goal, and I feel like if you don't get a bigger cushion against a team like Sunderland that's really good at fighting back at the end of a game, especially at home, you're opening yourself up to something weird happening, and then something weird happened.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, but I think we'll be fine.
From my side, there's something that happens when you go to the Northeast that basically means that the home team seems to have a carte blanche to perform whatever wrestling moves they want to on these soft Southerners. Um, it feels silly to complain about the ref after that game because actually the ref isn't the reason why we drew. But it's felt frustrating and strange both times at Newcastle and at Sunderland. Like, why are they allowed to be more violent than us?
I feel like it's maybe like just like reputation of just like, oh, big, strong, hard men kind of thing, which is why I think Arteta's tried to build up like a stronger, bigger physical team. Like, we're not just like fancy boys from London that like play nice soccer and just like score some nice goals. It's like, no, we can bruise it with the rest of them. But I think there's maybe always going to be reputation there. I think I'm maybe not the best person to ask as someone who's American. I don't know if I like have as much of the context of like between the North and South and like what that kind of looks like.
Mm. What does it seem like to you when you watch games at Sunderland and Newcastle?
I mean, it's much more just like uh I feel like the fans are much like blokier, if that makes sense, of just the proper just like uh hardo football fan.
Okay, well, let's try and get out of the Northeast because I've already spent too much time dwelling on it. Um, we'll talk about Saka in the game and then more generally.
hmm
He scored yesterday, a good
hmm
kind of trademark Saka near post finish. What did you make of him and what have you made of him generally this season?
You take away the goal and it wasn't a great performance. I think I especially was kind of disappointed that he kind of seemed a little less willing to take on his man than he usually is. Um, but overarchingly on the season, uh, and I want to put an asterisk on this because he had an injury and it can really like kind of make your season a little bit more stop start. I think especially with Saka when he's gotten injured, he's been slower to come back from them. Um, and I really want him to be like the talisman. I mean, like he is, it's our best player, but like I want him to score like 20, 30 goals all competitions. I want him to take that next step, and it hasn't really been there so far. I still fully think that he can like get to that point even this season, but it's been I think off and on for him this year.
Yeah, I think he's got 6 goals, which actually on the face of it is not
It's pretty
bad.
good.
He's
Yeah,
obviously taken penalties off Gyokeres, which is a bit like and how far through the season are we?
I
It
think we're almost exactly a quarter of the way into the, or
quarter.
a little ahead of a quarter.
Okay, so okay, does that yeah, so if he quadruples 6, then he gets 24 goals, if my
I
maths
can't
is right.
complain about that. That's exactly what I'm asking for. So, uh, yeah, I guess maybe it's like the way that like Salah scored last year, where it was just like he was an inevitability. Like that's how I want Saka to feel. Like it feels like our clutchest player in like situations like yesterday is Trossard. I don't think I've seen that enough from Saka, and I want to see more of that. That's I feel like maybe a hard expectation to put on him. I think more than anything, I just have very high expectations for Bukayo Saka. He is like my favorite player in this Arsenal team. Uh, I think he is the best player in this Arsenal team. There's nothing more that I want more than for him to be the best player in the world. And I think he can do that. I just want him to like actually get to that.
And if we do go on and win the league this season, do you think that that in large part rests on Saka's shoulders? Do you think it will be because he has stepped up and had that Salah level season?
I don't think we necessarily need that level to win the league. This is more just like than anything of like my I just want it for Saka. I think we like the fact that both like Liverpool last year and like City this year are very reliant on their stars to score a lot of their goals is dangerous. I mean, you're seeing it a little bit with Liverpool, like where Salah's goal scoring has kind of dropped off this season, and then they had that poor run of form when you rely a lot on one player to do all of that for you, you're not going to be able to like get that every game. And even we've seen that with City this year of like if Holland doesn't score, they often don't win. And luckily for them, they have a player that can score 90% of games. And when that happens, you're able to win a lot of games. But I like that Arsenal has never been wanting to be over reliant on one player. And I think we have enough stars and enough depth at this point. Well, hopefully have enough depth coming back on the international break where like we don't need to rely on one player to get all of our goals and to be the one guy that powers us to a title as much as I would love for Saka to do that. I think it would make our lives easier if we had that.
I do agree with you about Saka, by the way. In terms of my ambitions for him, I want him to be recognized as one of the best players in the world because I think he is. And I wonder with him if the problem is slightly that he's not a sexy player, really. He's not a particularly flashy dribbler. He's not a kind of absurd striker of the ball. He's quite robotic. He's quite Robin like. When he
Mhm.
cuts in, you know where the ball's going to go. And I think he gets a hard time from rival fans in the kind of classic way that if we then go and win, maybe they'll shut up a bit, but until you win, you have no leg to stand on. But I do agree with you that I want more from him. And do you expect him to get better this season?
Yes, 100%. I think he's gonna be able to find a consistent run of games and find that form again. I've not a doubt in my mind. He is a fucking great player. He will get that again.
I agree with you, and I hope that we're right, and that he's not secretly physically busted or something.
That would suck.
I want to zoom in on some other individuals for various reasons. We could sit here and talk about how good Timber has been, and my God, he's been fantastic, or Calafiori's surprisingly fantastic fitness. But I want to ask you about people who I view as slight outsiders this season.
Mhm.
Both signed contracts in the summer, both out of Hale End. How do you think Myles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri are doing?
I'll start with Miles. He is playing a lot less this season, and I think people are kind of overreacting to that because I think we all have to kind of remind ourselves they played a shit ton last year. Not that was not the plan. They played a lot last year because of like injuries and our lack of depth, and we have to remind ourselves that they are 18 and 19 respectively. Especially with Miles, he played a lot of minutes last year, and he was really, really good in those minutes. I love watching Myles Lewis-Skelly play left back for us, and I think with both of them, there's just kind of a question on like where they end up positionally. I love what I see from Miles at left back. I think he could very easily play his entire career there and be very, very good. A lot of my fellow hosts on the Shirtless Plantain Show will argue that he should be playing midfield, and I would be interested to see that, but it's not something we've seen yet. So it's just like, well, this is all just like an idea. I would rather just see him play in the position that I know that he is good at. And with bringing in Hincapié and Calafiori's been fit, it means he's played less, but I'm not worried about him. Like, if he continues on like this amount of minutes as he's played, he will have played probably comparable to what he played last year still in all competitions. And there's a lot of games to go around. So I'm not like worried that like either of the two of them are going to get like too upset and like want to leave because they're teenagers. They aren't supposed to be playing all the time. With Ethan, it feels like they've put him into like explicitly he is a 10. They're not going to play him on the wing anymore because that's where he played last season. And I think that partly is opening the door for Dowman a little bit, but then the other part of it is I think that's where they see him in a future position. They want him to, when he plays, play in his position. And I think he has a right to be like a little bit more frustrated than I think Miles does, mostly because like Miles had set the bar so high with the amount of minutes he played last season. But same with Ethan, like he is a teenager. 18-year-olds don't start every game. I like that we're easing these guys in. I think a lot of Arsenal fans were used to when we brought through like Saka and Smith Rowe back in the day, we were bad. So like we needed to play the teenagers all the time. Saka was 17 and like starting every match for us because we had to start him. He was like our best player when he was a teenager. And I think we want to like have a little bit more of like longevity on these guys and not be like running them into the ground immediately. And we have the depth to afford to not do that, which is great.
Yeah, I broadly agree with you there. I think my one concern, and this is kind of different for both of them, so I'll separate them, but say with someone like Miles last season, we weren't comfortable with trusting him initially because why would you trust a 17, 18-year-old? You know,
Mhm.
you shouldn't have to, but we did. And in many ways, I think that faith that we were forced to put into him came back to us in the form of uncharacteristically mature performances. And I I did trust him last season. I remember when I looked at the Real Madrid starting 11 and I saw Myles, it's not him I was worried about. I was worried about the fact that Kivior was starting.
Mhm.
And I wonder, in terms of people's development, I do agree with you. I don't want to throw them in unnecessarily. We have a brilliant squad. Why would we? But is there an element of to develop these people, you also have to expose them to situations in which they are required to do the business? Because at the end of the day, we want difference makers. That's what you have to be to get into this Arsenal starting 11.
Yeah, I mean, like, we saw, like, in the Carabao Cup against Brighton, both of them started and they both played very, very well. Like, I don't think either of them have put a foot wrong to where they won't be getting minutes, if that makes sense. And obviously, yeah, Myles started last year at the Bernabeu and, like, did a fucking great job. And plays with a maturity beyond his years. I would be curious with him specifically of what the plan is with him, what his future positioning looks like and stuff, how Arteta sees that going. Because obviously, both those positions he wants to play are pretty crowded, of both in midfield and as a left back. So, it makes it harder, but I think both these guys are competitors and want to play for Arsenal. So, I don't really see them like jumping ship early or anything like that. But I think you don't want to throw these guys into the fire unless you have to. That's kind of feels like how Arteta's been with them. Luckily, when we've thrown them to the fire, they've done pretty well. But I think we're now in a luxury position where we don't have to, which is good.
And generally, I think like people are obsessed with the depth of our squad, and the depth of our squad gives us the ability to flood these players appropriately. And I do think there is a slight, how do I describe this feeling? We saw them on the starting lineup all the time last season because we were in a terrible position with injuries. So we would rather it this way round and thinking about
Mm-hmm.
how we can give them more opportunities. Looking forwards for these players and other players who maybe haven't got so many minutes yet this season, do you think that this is going to be a title that is won by the big players who are currently performing well for us now? Or do you feel a role for these outsiders growing?
Yeah, I think I do see that. If we've seen anything from the start of the season, is that we are not going to have everyone fit the entire time. Um, and so we're going to have to rely on our strength of our squad. And like Madueke is going to have his moment. Gyokeres is going to have his moment. Eze is going to have his moment. I think a lot of players in this team are going to have some moments. Um, I'll be curious to see who gets the moment. Um, but like I don't like I said earlier, I don't think Arsenal's a team built on one player. Like Victor Gyokeres was never gonna like solve all of our issues by just being Victor Gyokeres. Like it's a whole team, and I think that they are all like built to be able to like win this together.
Yeah. So shifting gears a little bit, we conceded late yesterday. Looking back over the span of the season so far, we've had our fair share of late shows that have felt absurdly good. I'm thinking about Newcastle in particular,
Mhm.
but we got a late goal against City. Do you think these late sucker punches are par for the course? You win some, you lose some. Or do you think there's something to be worried about?
No, I think like when I was watching Liverpool at the beginning of the season and they just kept winning off of that, it was frustrating because that just didn't feel sustainable. Late winners are a thing in soccer. You can't go an entire season without like needing to do something like that. So I don't see it as like an issue for us. I'm loving the fact that we're able to come back from those situations. I think last season it kind of felt often insurmountable if we were down like one or two goals late in the game. And I like that this team feels like they have a little bit more fight for them. Typically, we have more firepower on the bench that we can bring on. Um, so like I think that we are built in a way where we want to win games early and we want to close it out, but that's just not always how it goes. And we have the like fight in the players to be able to win a game late. And I'm not chalking up like, oh, we conceded late yesterday against Sunderland as like a, oh, we're now like not as good as holding these games out, as more of chaos happened and they thrive in that.
I tend to think that they are unrelated, the late goals that have come against us. One thing I would say, though, that I think links those two games are either changes made slightly too late or lack of changes. And some of that is circumstantially enforced.
My cat's being insane right now. I'm so sorry. Which is his base setting, but like we're for context for everyone, we're recording this in the morning, which means he has a lot of energy and I can't like interact with him because I'm doing this. So he's just like, what the fuck can I do to make him pay attention to me? Because he has only child syndrome. I'm so sorry.
What what's he
Continue.
doing? I feel like I
He
need a
is
visual.
so he is like he has gone over to a shelf over there and just fully knocked some shit over. He is I have a large shelf over to my left, and there's like a bunch of like big books on there that he is trying to knock off, or he's just trying to jump to a different level of it to knock some more stuff off. He's insane. I think he might be a Tottenham fan.
Then we won't name him on this podcast.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve it.
um, let's talk about the late goals. I think both games were characterized by either a lack of changes or slightly late changes off the bench. And some of these have been circumstantially enforced. We've obviously been, which no one likes us talking about, struggling with injuries for a lot of this season. So let's leave that to one side and actually think about what has been available to Arteta in both games. In the case of the Liverpool game, Eze and Odegaard came on in the 70th minute. And I think up until about an hour in that game, I was very happy with how we were doing. If anything, I thought, wow, like this is too easy. My heart rate should be higher at Anfield. Like, what's going on? And then probably on or around the 60th minute, Curtis Jones came on and the game just ratcheted up. And I think some of that is natural in a place like Anfield, and in any away game in the Premier League, you're not going to control it in the way that you want to from minute 1 to 90 plus 7. But Liverpool started playing, as my Liverpool supporting twin likes to put it, more ambitiously. They were the only ones trying to win the game. And I think part of that was, that they started playing football and we didn't have our footballers on the pitch at that time. On 70 minutes, Eze and Odegaard came on and the game had kind of already gone against us by that point. And then I think Liverpool scored 81 or 82 minutes. So in that game, there is a marginal argument to be made that had Arteta acted sooner, perhaps the momentum wouldn't have shifted like that. We don't know. In the case of yesterday, only Mosquera came on the pitch. And I found myself thinking, where's Hincapié? Where's White? I'm sure the shithousery would have been off the charts if they'd come on. I sort of understood, we were under-resourced in attack. So Saka looked absolutely gassed. He wasn't coming off. But in terms of our defence, we have all of our best guys fit. And we seemed reluctant to bring in reinforcements. I don't think the goal happened because we were tired, but I do think mistakes and stuff are a factor associated with tiredness. So do you think I'm being unfair?
No, I don't think so. I think there's two schools of thought, specifically like with the stuff yesterday. I think Liverpool, we probably should have made changes earlier. That's like we look back and was like, yeah, but that's also that game's a draw most of the time. Szoboszlai has a great goal, and I think we can look at the game yesterday pretty similarly of like that's a win most of the time. But they come up with something at the end. I think I want to say Arteta was more in the school of thought of like we're just trying to grind this out. Let's keep consistency and not like throw something in that's going to make things worse, as opposed to what I think he should be doing as a manager when it comes to subs, which is how can I make things better? And I think you should believe in your players that you have on the bench. We've invested a lot of money into these players. We know how good someone like Ben White can be, especially in these kinds of situations. He's someone that's built for it. But I don't blame him for just being like, no, we're just going to make one sub. We just want Mosquera on. We just want to go 5 in the back and try to grind this out. And hindsight always makes things harder to argue. I don't think he necessarily made the wrong choice yesterday. I would like him to we have 5 subs. We have a deep squad. Let's use them.
Okay, so now seems an appropriate time to do a manager faith health check. I feel like the Arteta Stoke ball hounds have had moments of howling quite loudly this season. Obviously, we've since went on an amazing winning run. Where do you sit with Mikel?
I still think he's the guy. I still think he's the one that's going to lead us to a title. I think another thing that, like, I don't want to reset the project. Like, we're on the up and up. Like, we haven't stagnated. This is the best Arsenal team that we've had, and I think this is the one that will win us a title or trophies. And I'm still very pro Mikel. There's things I have issues with, but like not enough where I want us to change our manager.
Yeah, I think I don't think Mikel came into Arsenal as an elite manager or as a kind of, if you want to rank them, top 10 world manager.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what has been elite about him is, ironically, his humility. I think he is so willing to learn and adapt, almost to a fault, to be honest, because if I'm to have one criticism of him, it's that I think he overcorrects, which other people have suggested. The trauma of being torn apart at the Etihad on the break in 22-23 resulted in some way in Declan Rice era Arsenal, who have 4 centre-backs across the back line. That is a massive simplification, obviously.
Yeah.
I believe in Mikel's ability to grow, and I think he has grown. And I think last season was painful for so many reasons. And I don't think that it was Mikel's personal failure of planning that meant that we were so absurdly punished in the areas of the squad that were slightly weak. But I did wish at times for him to help us. And I think that extends to what he says in the press. And everyone is going to come for a manager that they think they can go for when they're losing.
Mm-hmm.
But I sometimes felt like his messaging, it was just leaving us open to ridicule. And I doubt a lot of the time, like when he said that thing about PSG, that he was being 100% sincere. I think sometimes the messages are for the players, or there's a code going on. But I think what I've seen from him this season, and again, it's very easy to say when things are going well, is a calmness that I think we really needed. Renee Slagers went to Lisbon and won the Champions League wearing shorts and a t-shirt. She was cool as a cucumber. And I think it's important. I think that because calmness transmits belief.
I completely agree. I think he sometimes can be a little bit too passionate. It can get us in trouble a little bit. But yeah, generally no issues where we're going. I think that Mikel will be Arsenal manager for a long time. But yeah, I agree with what you mean.
Okay, Mitch, in about half an hour, Liverpool are going to kick off against Man City. What do you want from that game? From my side, I think the best case scenario is obviously a draw. I think a Liverpool win is okay. I think City win is okay, but I just instinctively them chasing, you worry that muscle memory kicks in. So where are you on this game?
I'm same as you. First priority of like a draw. Second, Liverpool win. I don't want a City win. One thing I do know for sure, I probably just won't watch. I I don't really enjoy watching Liverpool or City. That stresses me out more than watching Arsenal. I don't really like his, especially watching like Liverpool where they have like pension for a last minute winner. It's just like that's not fun to watch when you're like rooting against them. So most of the time I choose to protect my peace and not watch Liverpool and City games, and I think I will probably extend that to this game, but we'll see. Maybe I'll be bored.
Yeah, I have to admit I'll be watching, but I have a fair few Liverpool fans in my family, so it's going to be on. In terms of two competitors, where do you think they are? What are you expecting from them going forward? My perspective is, despite our draw against Sunderland, which is nothing to be ashamed of, I can see them pushing us. I can see them getting results. But in terms of who I believe will produce the most consistent football for the next X number of games until the end of the season, I believe that is us. But where do you think the title race is?
I fully agree, but I think our next week of matches after the international break is gonna be a real litmus test. If we go into that Tottenham, Bayern, Chelsea run and we go 9 for 9, amazing. If we sputter and lose a couple of those games, it's like, ooh, okay, now we're maybe panicking a little bit. Um, but I think depending on how we're able to deal with that, I think will dictate a lot of how we're able to do for the rest of the season. And I am very confident that we are one of the, if not the best team in Europe. We can beat any team in front of us. So let's go fucking do it. We joked on SPS a couple weeks ago about like, what's the earliest we could clinch a title? And I think we were maybe being a little overzealous, but I think we are the best team. We should go win the title.
I think this season has been a really interesting study in, and actually last season as well, with kind of City's collapse, in what happens when the mind deserts you and invisible factors involved that you obviously cannot divine from stats.
Mm-hmm.
Something has happened to Liverpool in the past few weeks. There's something tactical going on. There is the fact that they've lost Brent, a transformative and unique passer. They've lost Luis Diaz, who is obviously a really good player. They are trying to change the way their midfield plays, but there is also a mental aspect, and some of that is also the terrible fact that one of their players died over the summer. But some of that is also just sport and what happens when you start doubting yourself. And in terms of the title race, I think my biggest fear is that there is nothing in this Arsenal team that I think is not capable of being the best team in the league. But I think I worry about factors we can't control, and I think keeping our heads will be the biggest factor in the title race for me.
I agree with that. We haven't seen silly red cards so far this year. I hope we keep that going because I think that's what really like shot us in the foot last year. But some of those things were out of our control a little bit, but some of them was like I think the Declan Rice and Trossard red cards last year were deeply silly. But it's still like, all right, well, they're calling it this way, so don't kick the ball. With Trossard's, it was like millisecond, but I think we just need to show the maturity and I think that this team has shown that they can and will do that.
Okay, away from invisible factors and back onto the pitch, do you think we have played our best football yet?
Yes, there's been games of it. Like that Atletico game was lights out. That's exactly the kind of soccer that we want to be playing, where we don't let them do anything and we score a bunch of goals. That's exactly what we want to be doing. I think we're gonna have more fun to be able to do that in a Champions League game than we will in a Premier League game. I think that's just the nature of those competitions. Uh, but yeah, I think there's been multiple games this year where it's like, oh, we are on the top of our game. Like even in glimpses yesterday, it was like, oh, we are absolutely cooking. Like when we came out in the second half and Saka scored the goal and then Trossard scored the goal. That is some of the best soccer we've played in a while, especially in a tough away game where we were coming back from a deficit. So I think we both have, but we still need to kind of put it together more consistently.
And I think it's important to say in a kind of vibe check-in setting that some of the reason, or a large part of the reason why we've been able to play some of our best football is a big guy called Victor Gyokeres, who has done a lot for clearing space around Saka. And I notice it a lot on the edge of the box. Like the ball just drops to our players on the edge of the box so much more. So I want to thank him, and I want Victor, thank you. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Kai comes back, because in him we have, someone who people consider to be much more of a footballer. And I think it will be very interesting to see how Arteta uses them in different settings and what they enable in our team. I got to say, I was quite surprised yesterday that our two goals came from good football moments. Saka gets slipped in, Trossard gets that space because Calafiori overlaps. I thought that no Gyokeres would hamper us and we would be scoring from crosses and corners. So it's good to see that the football is still there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Gyokeres has been great. I'm excited for both him and Kai to be back because I think they offer different things and be able to switch that up is going to be great. Um, People have been very harsh on him, which I understand, but he is scoring goals, and I think he is looking more comfortable on the ball as he's played more. And yeah, I think he's going to keep getting better, and as he gets more comfortable in this team, and even the players have talked about like he plays differently than other strikers that we've played with, so we've got to get used to him as well.
Yeah, and I think options again. Madueke is going to come back and make a case for playing on the left or right.
Yeah.
Odegaard's going to come back, and then Eze can play on the left. I think definitely diversity contributes to your ability to play your best football. But I digress because I have something very important to ask you. Viewers may have been wondering why me and Mitch are sitting here in shirts that have nothing to do with Arsenal. And that is because I asked him to wear a shirt that represents something about how he feels about the season. So, Mitch, take it away. Tell me what you're wearing and why.
I'm wearing the Colorado Rapids New Day kit. I live in Colorado. I'm a Rapids fan. I'm apparently a company man because they're also owned by Kroenke Sports and Entertainment. But this shirt was like specifically for like mental health awareness kind of things. And I feel like the way that Arsenal's been playing this year has made all Arsenal fans' mental health just a little bit better this year. So that's why I decided to wear this instead of just wearing like the gorgeous third kit that we have this season.
Let's hope that our mental health is still good at the end of the season.
100%.
So, I am wearing this season's Barca shirt with guess who? Can you see the back? Lamine Yamal on the back.
Amazing.
And I am wearing this because I'm not a Barcelona fan. I think he is embodying something that we've actually talked about in this episode, and that is a young player who has played an unbelievable amount of football and is now struggling with injuries. I think he's got like a chronic pain condition at the moment, and he is playing through injections. I don't know loads about the situation, but I think he's like, is he 17? Is he 18? I mean, this is
I think
ridiculous.
he's 18. Yeah.
18. Like, this guy is so talented, and Barca are so lucky to have him, and La Masia is amazing. I think when we have someone like Dowman coming through, who I'm not equating these two players, by the way, but a really exciting young player who is clearly capable of playing at a level that is way beyond their age. I think I want to praise Mikel and Arsenal for not being too tempted to throw him in. Saka was exhausted yesterday. They could have put Downman on, but I think they probably knew he would be kicked in half. So I hope Yamal has a long and successful career, but I am worried about overplaying young players, and I appreciate Mikel's caution when it comes to Dowman.
100%. Absolutely
And
agree.
I'm excited. And I'm excited about Dowman.
Yeah, I can't believe that he's like as good as he is. Like when he was like there for the preseason tour, I was like, there's no way he's like actually gonna play. And then he played and I was like, why is he this good? What the fuck? And I'll be curious to see how he's used going forward. Cause like honestly, if he came on yesterday, I wouldn't have hated him being an outlet because he's really good at drawing fouls. So I don't know. I think Mikel is hesitant to bring him on in a tight game state, and I completely understand that. But also, I think sometimes you have to like when yesterday when we had no attacking options on the bench, you got to show some faith to these kids that you're putting some faith in.
Yeah, I think his level is unbelievable. It's hard to kind of plot these players who come in and already look so good. I think, we had it with Smith Rowe, Saka. I think they have been part of a generation post all I can think of is Wobie and Akpom. Decent footballers, especially in Wobie's case, but not really good enough for Arsenal. And I think these players, Mary, MLS, Saka, even Smith Rowe to an extent, now Dowman, just come in and they look part of it already. And they don't just look at the level, they look beyond the level. But I think in terms of what we expect from him, it's very, very hard to predict where that then goes.
100%. It's very hard to know where like the trajectory of a young player is because they can start so hot and then can have trouble with injuries and stuff like that. So
All right, Mitch, thank you so much for doing this early in the morning. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm sure we will talk more throughout the season, and let's just hope we're talking on the other side of a title win.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Scarlett. It was great having you on SPS a couple weeks ago. And yeah, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, guys, do check out SPS. I will put it in the episode notes. All right, thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.